story. Elias Thorne's fingers traced over the architectural blueprints spread across his mahogany desk, his keen eyes scrutinizing every detail of the new development project. The sounds of party preparations filtered through his study door, crystal glasses clinking, servers arranging silverware, and his wife Vivian's voice directing the staff with practiced authority. 25 years. The number resonated in his mind as he made precise annotations on the blueprints. Each mark was deliberate, calculated, just like everything else in his life. The party would start in an hour, celebrating their silver anniversary. Vivian had insisted on making it a grand affair, inviting half the city's elite to witness their supposed marital bliss. A knock on his study door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," Elias called out, not looking up from his work. The door opened, and Damien Dax Hayes strode in, carrying an expensive bottle of scotch. "There's the man of the hour. Still working even on your anniversary?" Dax's voice carried its usual charm, masking something Elias couldn't quite place. "Dax," Elias acknowledged, finally looking up. "You're early. Couldn't let my best friend start his anniversary celebration without his favorite scotch, could I?" Dax placed the bottle on the desk, his confident smile never wavering. "Single malt, aged 25 years. Seemed appropriate." Before Elias could respond, Vivian appeared in the doorway. Her designer dress hugged her figure perfectly, her blonde hair styled immaculately. "Dax, darling, you're here already." Her voice carried a note of surprise, perhaps too much surprise. Dax's gaze lingered on Vivian a fraction too long. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Viv. You look stunning." Elias observed the exchange silently, his architect's eye for detail noting the subtle shift in Vivian's posture, the way Dax's fingers twitched slightly at his sides. Small details, nearly imperceptible, but they registered in his mind like red flags on a blueprint. "The caterers need direction about the appetizer arrangement," Vivian said, her eyes flickering between the two men. "Elias, dear, would you mind?" "Of course," Elias replied smoothly, standing from his desk. As he passed Vivian, he noticed a faint, unfamiliar cologne lingering in the air around her. Not his, certainly not hers. The party began promptly at 7. Guests filled their modernist home, admiring the carefully curated art pieces and discussing business deals over champagne. Elias played the perfect host, navigating conversations with the ease of a man accustomed to managing million-dollar negotiations. "Dad," Jada's voice cut through the ambient noise. His 17-year-old daughter stood beside him, her dark eyes, so much like his own, carrying a worried expression. "Can we talk for a minute?" Elias guided them to a quieter corner. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Jada hesitated, fidgeting with the sleeve of her dress. "Have you noticed anything weird lately? With Mom?" "Weird how?" Elias kept his voice neutral, though his interest sharpened. "I don't know. She's been different. More distracted. And the way she and Uncle Dax..." Jada stopped abruptly as Vivian's laugh rang out across the room. They both turned to see her standing unnecessarily close to Dax, her hand resting on his arm as they shared what appeared to be a private joke. "I'm sure it's nothing," Elias assured his daughter, though his mind was already calculating, analyzing. "Why don't you go check on your friends? I saw Emma and Sarah arrive earlier." Once Jada left, Elias retreated to his study under the pretense of taking a business call. He locked the door and sat at his computer, pulling up phone records, email accounts, and credit card statements. Years of business dealings had taught him the importance of keeping detailed records. Now, those same skills would serve a different purpose. The first red flag appeared in a series of text messages from an unknown number, dating back 3 months. The second was a pattern of credit card charges at hotels during times Vivian had claimed to be shopping or visiting friends. The third, and most damning, was an email thread between 2 anonymous accounts, the content of which left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Elias sat back in his chair, his expression unchanged as he processed the information. The party continued outside his study, the sounds of celebration now seeming grotesque in their falsity. 25 years of marriage, built on trust and loyalty, now revealed to be as hollow as the champagne flutes tinkling in the next room. He thought about confronting them immediately, making a scene in front of all their guests. It would be satisfying, certainly, to watch their faces as their secret was exposed. But Elias Thorne hadn't become one of the city's most successful architects by acting on impulse. No, this required precision, planning, the same meticulous attention to detail he applied to his architectural projects. He began making notes in a small black notebook, his handwriting steady despite the rage building inside him. A knock on the study door interrupted his planning. "Elias," Vivian's voice called out. "The guests are asking for you." "It's almost time for the toast." "Just wrapping up a call," he responded, his voice betraying nothing of what he discovered. "I'll be right there." Elias closed his laptop and tucked the notebook into his desk drawer. He straightened his tie, checked his reflection in the window, and opened the door. Vivian stood there, perfectly coiffed and smiling, the picture of a devoted wife. "Everything okay?" she asked, reaching out to adjust his tie unnecessarily. "Perfect," he replied, taking her hand and pressing a kiss to it. "Shall we?" They returned to the party, where Dax was already holding up his glass, ready to make a toast. Elias watched as his best friend spoke about loyalty, friendship, and enduring love, each word now dripping with hypocrisy. To Elias and Vivian, Dax concluded, raising his glass higher. 25 years of marriage, and many more to come. The guests echoed the sentiment, glasses clinking throughout the room. Elias raised his own glass, meeting Dax's eyes across the crowd. His friend's smile faltered slightly at whatever he saw in Elias's gaze. "Thank you all for coming," Elias addressed the crowd, his voice commanding immediate attention. 25 years ago, I made vows to honor, cherish, and protect. Those vows meant everything to me. He paused, noting how Vivian's hand tightened on her glass. They still do. The party continued late into the night, guests gradually departing until only family remained. Jada had gone to bed, leaving Elias, Vivian, and Dax in the living room with the remains of the celebration scattered around them. "I should head out," Dax said, standing somewhat unsteadily. "Fantastic party, both of you. Really spectacular." "I'll walk you out," Vivian offered quickly. "No need," Elias interjected smoothly. "I'll do it. You've been on your feet all night, darling." He walked Dax to the door, maintaining casual conversation about work and their upcoming golf game. As Dax stepped outside, Elias called after him. "Dax?" "Yeah. Thank you for coming tonight. For being such a good friend all these years." Elias's voice was sincere, which made the underlying threat all the more chilling. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Dax's smile wavered slightly. "Of course. What are friends for?" Elias watched him drive away, then returned to find Vivian already heading upstairs. "Going to bed?" he asked. "Exhausted," she replied, not meeting his eyes. "Coming up soon. Need to review some documents first." Back in his study, Elias opened his laptop again. He had work to do, evidence to gather, a plan to construct. The party might be over, but the real celebration was just beginning. As he typed, he allowed himself a small smile. They thought they had been careful, clever even, but they had forgotten one crucial detail. Elias Thorne never did anything halfway, including revenge. The architect in him knew that before you could build something new, you sometimes had to demolish what came before. He was prepared to tear it all down, brick by brick, until nothing remained of their perfectly constructed lies. The week following the anniversary party unfolded with the precision of an architect's blueprint. Elias maintained his routine, breakfast with Jada, meetings at the office, dinner with Vivian. But beneath this carefully constructed normalcy, he was laying the groundwork for what was to come. Harper Investigations, the woman across from him stated, sliding her business card across his desk. Sarah Harper's reputation preceded her, discreet, thorough, and most importantly, ruthless in pursuit of the truth. "I need everything," Elias said, pushing a folder toward her. "Every meeting, every call, every hotel room. I want times, dates, photographs. Leave no stone unturned." Harper examined the initial information he'd gathered. "Your wife and best friend," she noted, her tone professional. "This won't be cheap, Mr. Thorne. Money isn't an issue. Discretion is. That's why you hired me." Harper stood, tucking the folder into her briefcase. I'll have preliminary findings for you by the end of the week. True to her word, Harper delivered her first report 5 days later. Elias sat in his office after hours, examining the photographs and documentation with clinical detachment. The evidence was damning. Vivian and Dax entering various hotels, intimate dinners in secluded restaurants, stolen moments in parking garages. His phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. Working late again? Don't forget we have dinner with the Harrisons tomorrow. Elias typed back, of course not. Should be home in an hour. He set the phone down, returning to Harper's report. One photo caught his attention, Vivian and Dax at the Grand Hotel. The same day she told Jada she was helping her sister Susan move. The next morning at breakfast, Jada picked at her toast, unusually quiet. Dad? Yes, sweetheart. Is everything okay? With you and Mom? Elias lowered his newspaper, studying his daughter's worried expression. Why do you ask? It's just different lately. The way you look at each other, or don't look at each other. And Mom's been acting weird. Last week, she said she was helping Aunt Susan move. But when I called Susan about borrowing her blue dress, she said she was out of town. I'm sure there's an explanation. Elias replied carefully, making a mental note to add this information to his growing collection of evidence. Dad, I'm not stupid. I see things. The way Mom and Uncle Dax. Jada. Elias's voice was firm but gentle. Let me handle this, okay? Focus on school, on your friends. Can you do that for me? She nodded reluctantly. Just don't let her hurt you, Dad. The interaction with Jada strengthened Elias's resolve. That evening, he met with Harper again, this time in a quiet bar downtown. You were right about the Grand Hotel, Harper said, sliding a USB drive across the table. They were there multiple times. I've got security footage, room service receipts, everything. But there's more. Elias raised an eyebrow. More? Your friend Dax? He's been making some interesting business deals. Nothing strictly illegal, but definitely in the gray area. And your wife's been helping him, using your connections. Explain. She's been dropping your name at charity events, introducing Dax to potential investors. They've been using your reputation to facilitate some questionable real estate developments. I've included all the documentation on the drive. Elias took a slow sip of his scotch. Keep digging. I want everything. The next few days passed in a blur of revelations. Each new piece of evidence Harper delivered was another nail in the coffin of his marriage. Elias documented everything meticulously in his black notebook, building a case that would leave no room for denial or explanation. During this time, Vivian grew bolder in her deceptions. She criticized him more openly, complained about his long hours, his dedication to work. Each complaint was a thinly veiled attempt to justify her own actions. You're never here anymore, Elias, she said one evening, her voice sharp with accusation. Always at the office, always working. Someone has to maintain our lifestyle, he replied mildly, watching her reaction. Those designer dresses and spa weekends don't pay for themselves. Her face flushed with anger. Is that all you think I care about? Money? Not all, he said, his voice carrying a weight she missed entirely. You seem to care quite a bit about Dax's company too. The comment hung in the air for a moment before she recovered. He's your best friend, Elias. Of course I care about him. Indeed. Elias returned to his newspaper, noting how quickly she changed the subject to their upcoming social engagements. Later that night, Elias received another call from Harper. Mr. Thorne, you need to see this immediately. 20 minutes later, he sat in her office, watching security footage from various hotels. The timestamps aligned perfectly with Vivian's supposed charity meetings and shopping trips. The audio files were even more damning. Intimate conversations, plans for future rendezvous, discussions about how to keep Elias in the dark. There's one more thing, Harper said, pulling out a final folder. They've been talking about taking a trip together. 2 weeks in Europe, planned for next month. They've already booked the tickets and hotels. Elias felt a cold smile spread across his face. Perfect. This is exactly what I needed. What are you planning to do? Justice, Ms. Harper. Swift and absolute. He stood, gathering the evidence. Continue monitoring them. I want to know every move they make. The next day at his office, Elias received an unexpected visit from Dax. His friend, Swagger Ed in. All fake smiles and false camaraderie. Elias, my man, been missing you at the club. How about a round of golf this weekend? Elias looked up from his computer, his face unreadable. Can't this weekend, Dax. Too much work to do. All work and no play, brother. You know what they say about that. Dax perched on the edge of Elias's desk, his position intentionally casual. Vivian mentioned you've been distant lately. Everything okay? Everything's exactly as it should be, Elias replied, his voice carrying a hint of steel that made Dax shift uncomfortably. How's the Henderson development coming along? Good. Great. Actually, thanks for putting in a good word with the investors. Of course. What are friends for? After Dax left, Elias opened his notebook, adding new observations to his growing collection. The pieces were falling into place, the evidence mounting. Soon, very soon, he would be ready to act. That evening, he found Jada waiting in his study. Dad, I need to tell you something. What is it? I saw Mom today, at the mall. She was with Uncle Dax. Jada's voice trembled slightly. They didn't see me, but they were holding hands. And then they... I know, sweetheart, Elias said quietly. I know everything. What are you going to do? Elias looked at his daughter, seeing the pain and anger in her eyes that mirrored his own. I'm going to make sure they never hurt us again. But I need you to trust me, and to let me handle this my way. Can you do that? Jada nodded, her jaw set in determination. Just don't let them get away with it. Oh, they won't, Elias assured her, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. They most definitely won't. The restaurant buzzed with the quiet conversation of Seattle's elite, crystal glasses tinkling against fine china, the soft melodic notes of a grand piano floating through the air. Le Petit Jardin had been their anniversary dinner venue for 15 years. Tonight would be its last. Vivian and Dax arrived first, already sharing private jokes and intimate glances. They chose a corner table, secluded enough for their quiet conversations, but still visible to anyone who mattered in their social circle. Vivian wore a striking red dress that caught every eye in the room, while Dax sat entirely too close to her, his hand occasionally brushing against hers on the table. Where's Elias? Dax asked, checking his watch with feigned concern. Not like him to be late. Probably caught up with work again, Vivian replied, rolling her eyes. You know how he gets with his projects. Well, his loss is my gain, Dax said softly, reaching for her hand under the table. More time alone with you. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice Elias's arrival until he was standing at the table, his presence commanding immediate attention. His dark suit was impeccably tailored, his expression unreadable as he took in the scene before him. Sorry I'm late, he said smoothly, taking his seat. Had to pick up Jada. Their daughter appeared behind him, her face a mask of forced politeness as she sat down. She couldn't quite meet her mother's eyes. Jada, sweetheart. Vivian straightened up, quickly shifting away from Dax. I didn't know you were joining us. Dad insisted, Jada replied coolly. Said it was a family celebration. The waiter approached with menus and wine suggestions. Elias ordered their usual champagne, a vintage they'd shared on their 20th anniversary. Everything about him appeared normal, controlled, exactly as expected, except for the coldness in his eyes that neither Vivian nor Dax seemed to notice. A toast, Elias announced once the champagne was poured. To 25 years of marriage. He raised his glass, his voice carrying just enough to draw attention from nearby tables. To loyalty, trust, and honesty. Vivian's smile faltered slightly, but she raised her glass. Dax followed suit, his hand trembling almost imperceptibly. And to friends, Elias continued, his gaze fixed on Dax. Those who stand beside us through thick and thin, who we trust with our lives, our families. He paused, reaching into his jacket pocket. And our secrets. The sudden change in his tone made Vivian freeze, her champagne glass halfway to her lips. Dax's confident smile began to crack at the edges. Elias pulled out his phone, tapping it once. The restaurant speaker system, usually playing soft classical music, crackled to life with a different sound. Vivian's voice, breathy and intimate, speaking words meant only for Dax's ears. I miss you already. Last night was incredible. The color drained from Vivian's face. Dax knocked over his water glass, scrambling to silence the speakers, but Elias wasn't done. More recordings played, each more damning than the last. Their secret meetings, their plans, their mockery of Elias's trust. All of it echoed through the stunned silence of the restaurant. That's enough, Vivian hissed, reaching for Elias's phone. Stop this immediately. Instead of responding, Elias began laying photographs on the table, one by one. Vivian and Dax entering various hotels. Their intimate dinners. Their stolen kisses in parking garages. Each photo was dated, time-stamped, irrefutable evidence of their betrayal. That's the hotel, Jada's voice cracked with emotion, pointing at one of the photos. The one where you said you were helping Aunt Susan. Tears welled in her eyes as she turned to her mother. You were with him the whole time? Vivian's carefully maintained facade crumbled. Jada, sweetheart, I can explain. Explain what, exactly? Elias's voice was deadly quiet. How you've been sleeping with my best friend. How you've both been lying to me for months. Or perhaps you'd like to explain the European trip you've planned for next month. Dax finally found his voice. Elias, brother. This isn't what it looks like. Brother? Elias's laugh was cold, devoid of any humor. Is that what you call someone whose wife you're fucking behind their back? The surrounding tables had given up, pretending not to notice. Some guests were openly staring, others whispering behind their hands. In one evening, Elias had destroyed the social standing Vivian had spent decades building. How dare you? Vivian sputtered, her voice shaking with rage and humiliation. How dare you do this here, in front of everyone? How dare I? Elias's voice remained eerily calm. How dare I expose your affair? Your betrayal? Your complete disregard for our marriage, our family? He stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. No, Vivian. The question is, how dare you? Jada stood as well, her chair scraping against the floor. I hate you, she spat at her mother, then turned to Dax. Both of you. You're disgusting. Jada, please. Vivian reached for her daughter, but Jada jerked away. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. The restaurant had fallen completely silent, every eye on their table. Elias placed a hand on Jada's shoulder, gentle but firm. Let's go home, sweetheart. Elias, wait. Dax stood, desperation in his voice. We can talk about this. Talk? Elias turned back, his expression terrifying in its calmness. We're long past talking, Dax. But don't worry, we're not done. Not by a long shot. He guided Jada toward the exit, leaving Vivian and Dax to face the judgment of their peers. As they reached the door, the maitre d' approached nervously. Mr. Thorne, your bill. Charge it to Mr. Hayes's account. Elias replied without breaking stride. He and my wife have so much to celebrate after all. The drive home was silent, broken only by Jada's occasional sniffles. Elias reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm sorry you had to see that, he said softly. I'm not, Jada replied, wiping her eyes. They deserved it. They deserved worse. Elias's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Don't worry, sweetheart. This is just the beginning. When they arrived home, Jada went straight to her room. Elias made his way to his study, poured himself a glass of scotch, and sat down at his desk. He opened his laptop, checking the evening's social media activity. Already, the news was spreading through their social circle like wildfire. His phone buzzed with messages, from Vivian, from Dax, from their mutual friends. He ignored them all, instead opening his black notebook and making a new entry. Phase 1 was complete. Tomorrow, he would begin dismantling everything they held dear, piece by piece, until nothing remained of their perfect little affair except ruins. Clara Sterling's heels clicked against the marble floor of Elias's downtown office as she strode in, carrying a thick leather briefcase. Her expression was as sharp as her charcoal suit, her dark eyes already calculating the upcoming legal battle. I saw the video, she said without preamble, setting her briefcase on Elias's desk. The restaurant exposure went viral in our social circles. Bold move. Elias looked up from his computer screen, his face impassive. Can you destroy her? Legally? Without question. Clara pulled out a stack of documents. I've been reviewing your finances since your call last night. The prenup is solid, but that's just the beginning. I found some interesting discrepancies in Vivian's personal accounts. Tell me, she's been siphoning money from your joint accounts, moving it through a series of shell companies, presumably trying to build a nest egg for her eventual escape with Dax. Clara's lips curved into a predatory smile. Amateur hour. She left a trail a first-year law student could follow. Elias leaned back in his chair. How much? Close to $2 million over the past year. Clara spread several bank statements across his desk. Here, and here. All traceable back to accounts she set up with Dax's help. That's fraud, Elias. We can use this. I want everything frozen. Today. Clara nodded, already typing on her tablet. I've prepared the emergency injunctions. Once I file these, she won't be able to access any accounts, joint or personal. The fraud allegations will give us grounds to freeze everything pending investigation. A knock interrupted them. Elias's assistant poked her head in. Mr. Thorne? Mr. Hayes is here. He's quite insistent on seeing you. Perfect timing, Clara murmured, gathering her documents. Let's see how he handles this. Dax burst into the office, his usual swagger replaced by desperate energy. His designer suit was wrinkled, his face haggard. Elias, brother, we need to talk? Mr. Hayes, Clara interrupted smoothly. I'm Clara Sterling, Mr. Thorne's attorney. Any communication between you and my client needs to go through proper legal channels. Legal channels? Come on, Elias. We've been friends for 20 years. Dax stepped closer to the desk. What happened at the restaurant? I can explain everything. Elias didn't look up from his computer. Ms. Sterling, please ensure Mr. Hayes receives the cease and desist order. Already prepared. Clara extracted a document from her briefcase. Mr. Hayes, this legally bars you from attempting to contact Mr. Thorne, his daughter, or any member of his immediate family. Violation will result in immediate legal action. You can't be serious. Dax's voice cracked. Elias, please. I made a mistake. I'll do anything to make this right. Finally, Elias raised his eyes to meet Dax's. The cold fury in his gaze made his former friend step back. Anything? Then sign these. He slid a stack of papers across the desk. Full confession of your fraud. Every penny you and Vivian stole. Every deal you manipulated using my name and reputation. Dax's face went pale. You can't prove. Oh, but I can. Elias's voice was soft, almost gentle. Sign now, and maybe I'll let you keep your real estate license. Refuse, and I'll bury you so deep in litigation you'll never work in this city again. You're bluffing. Clara pulled out another document. Your signature, Mr. Hayes, on the Mountain View development deal. The one where you forged Mr. Thorne's approval on substandard materials? That's criminal fraud. Shall I continue? Dax collapsed into a chair, sweat beading on his forehead. I trusted you. Elias continued, each word precise and cutting. I made you my daughter's godfather. I brought you into my home, my business, my life. And you repaid that trust by fucking my wife and stealing my money. It wasn't like that, Dax protested weakly. Vivian and I, we fell in love. Love? Elias's laugh was harsh. Is that what you call it? Tell me, did you love her when you were embezzling from her accounts too? Dax's head snapped up. What? Oh, you didn't know? Clara's smile was razor-sharp as she displayed another set of documents. Those shell companies you set up? You've been skimming from them. 20% of every transfer, by my calculation. Not very romantic. The color drained from Dax's face. That's not. I never. Sign the confession. Elias interrupted. Or I'll make sure Vivian sees these records. I wonder how she'll feel about her true love then. Dax's hands shook as he picked up the pen. Clara supervised as he signed every page, notarizing each signature. When he finished, she collected the documents with efficient precision. We're done here, Elias said, turning back to his computer. Get out. Elias. Mr. Hayes, Clara cut in. Shall I call security? Or can you find your own way out? After Dax left, Clara began preparing the court filings. The confession makes everything easier. With this and the financial records, we can strip Vivian of any claim to your assets. The fraud charges alone. I want her destroyed, Elias interrupted. Not just financially. Completely. Clara nodded, understanding perfectly. I'll contact our PR team. By the time we're done, she won't be welcome in a soup kitchen, let alone her precious country club. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal maneuvers. Clara's team worked relentlessly, filing injunctions and freezing accounts. Vivian's credit cards were canceled one by one. Her attempts to access their joint accounts were met with polite but firm rejection from the banks. Elias watched from his office as his wife's carefully constructed world crumbled. Her calls to their mutual friends went unanswered. Party invitations disappeared. The charity board she chaired quietly asked for her resignation. Dad. Jada stood in his office doorway, her face troubled. Mom's been calling me. She sounds desperate. You don't have to talk to her, Elias said gently. Clara can handle any necessary communication. I don't want to talk to her. Jada hesitated. What's going to happen to her? Justice, Elias replied simply. She made her choices, Jada. Now she has to live with the consequences. The consequences became clear the next morning when Vivian arrived at Elias's office unannounced. Her designer outfit couldn't hide her disheveled state, her makeup failing to conceal sleepless nights. You can't do this to me, she hissed, ignoring the assistant's attempts to stop her. I'm your wife. Not for much longer. Elias didn't look up from his work. My lawyer will contact your lawyer. Assuming you can still afford one. All my accounts are frozen. My cards don't work. The house staff won't let me in. Vivian's voice rose hysterically. Where am I supposed to go? Perhaps Dax can help you. Elias's tone was conversational. Although he might be busy explaining those missing transfers to his own lawyers, Vivian's face went slack. What missing transfers? Ask your lover. Elias finally met her gaze. After all, you trusted him enough to destroy our marriage. Surely you can trust him with your money too? Clara appeared in the doorway, security guards flanking her. Mrs. Thorne, you're in violation of the temporary restraining order. Please come with us. As the guards led Vivian away, her desperate threats echoing down the hallway, Clara turned to Elias. The divorce papers are ready. Once we present the evidence of financial fraud, she won't get a penny. Elias nodded, already focusing on his next move. The legal battle was just the beginning. He had bigger targets in mind, and Councilman Harrison was next on his list. Councilman Richard Harrison's office occupied the top floor of City Hall, a testament to his political influence. The man himself sat behind an imposing desk, his well-fed frame wrapped in an expensive suit, his fingers adorned with signet rings that caught the light as he gestured. This is all very unfortunate, Elias, Harrison said, his tone carefully sympathetic. A man of your standing, dealing with such personal troubles. But why bring it to me? Elias placed a USB drive on the desk between them. Because it stopped being personal when I found these records, Richard. Harrison's practiced politician's smile didn't waver. Records? The Mountain View development wasn't the only project where Dax used my name without authorization. Elias's voice was calm, almost conversational. He had help. Political help. Your help. The smile flickered. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. Elias withdrew a document from his briefcase. This is the original proposal for the Riverside Plaza project. Notice anything interesting about the zoning changes? Harrison didn't touch the paper. I'm a busy man, Elias. If you have concerns about zoning regulations, the dates don't match. Elias continued as if Harrison hadn't spoken. The approval came through before the application was even filed. Impossible, unless someone in the city council fast-tracked it. Someone who received a very generous campaign contribution from a certain developer. Politics is complicated, Harrison said carefully. Campaign finance laws. Save it. Elias's voice hardened. I know about the kickbacks, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, everything. Harrison's facade cracked slightly. What do you want? Originally? Nothing. I was focused on my wife and former best friend. But then I found your fingerprints all over their betrayal. Elias leaned forward. You helped Dax rise in the real estate world. Pushed through his projects. Probably knew about the affair too. How long, Richard? How long were you all laughing behind my back? Now, Elias, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. That's why you're still sitting behind that desk instead of talking to federal investigators. Elias stood. For now. Harrison's face flushed red. Are you threatening me, Thorne? Not at all. I'm giving you a choice. Resign. Quietly. Cite health concerns or family obligations. Walk away with your reputation intact. And if I refuse? Elias smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Then I release everything. Every document. Every transaction. Every corrupt deal you've ever made. Your career won't just end, Richard. It will become a cautionary tale. You're bluffing. You can't prove. Check your email. Harrison turned to his computer, clicking through his inbox. His face went pale as he opened the attachments. This is how did you? I'm thorough. Elias moved toward the door. You have 24 hours to announce your resignation. After that, the files go public. Wait. Harrison's voice had lost its political smoothness. We can work something out. Money? A partnership? Name your price. Elias paused at the door. My price? You helped destroy my marriage, corrupted my business relationships, and made a mockery of my trust. There isn't enough money in the world to pay that price. I'll ruin you, Harrison threatened, desperation making his voice shake. I have connections. Influence. No, Richard. You had connections. You had influence. Elias's voice was almost pitying. By this time tomorrow, you'll have nothing. Just like Vivian. Just like Dax. As Elias left City Hall, his phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Vivian's trying to fight back. She's threatening to expose your past dealings. Let her try, he replied. Everything I've done is legal. Documented. Protected. His next stop was a meeting with his PR team, orchestrating the careful release of information about Harrison's corruption. Not everything at once, that would be too obvious. Instead, a steady drip of revelations, each more damaging than the last. Back at his office, Jada was waiting. I saw Councilman Harrison on the news. He looked scared. Did he? Elias kept his tone neutral. Dad. Jada's voice was serious. I'm not a child. I know what you're doing. To Mom, to Dax, to Harrison. You're destroying them all. Does that bother you? Jada considered the question. They deserve it. They betrayed you. Betrayed us. She met his eyes. Just don't lose yourself in the revenge, okay? Elias touched his daughter's cheek gently. Everything I do is for us, sweetheart. To make sure no one ever thinks they can hurt our family again. Later that evening, as predicted, Harrison held a press conference. His face was ashen as he announced his immediate resignation, citing unspecified health concerns. The political vultures were already circling, sensing weakness. Clara called as Elias watched the broadcast. It's done. Harrison's finished. But we might have a problem. Detective Maxwell is asking questions about the leaked documents. Let him ask, Elias replied. Everything we've done is legal. Barely, perhaps, but legal. And the detective? Keep monitoring him. If he gets too close, we'll deal with it. Elias ended the call, turning back to his computer. A new email caught his attention, from Vivian, desperate and rambling. She discovered Dax's theft from their shared accounts. Her lover had betrayed her just as she had betrayed Elias. The irony would have been amusing if it wasn't so predictable. Elias deleted the email without reading past the first line. He had more important matters to attend to. The dominoes were falling exactly as planned, each betrayal and corruption exposed with surgical precision. Detective Ray Maxwell sat in his cramped office, surrounded by paper trails and digital records. The web of corruption he'd uncovered surrounding Councilman Harrison's resignation grew more complex by the day. And at the center of it all was Elias Thorne. Hell of a mess you've stirred up, Maxwell muttered, reviewing the latest batch of leaked documents. Each revelation was more damaging than the last, yet somehow everything traced back to legitimate sources. It was too clean, too perfect. His phone buzzed. Another anonymous tip about Harrison's dealings. Maxwell had been a detective long enough to recognize a coordinated campaign when he saw one. Someone was systematically dismantling Harrison's entire power structure and doing it entirely within the bounds of the law. A knock on his office door interrupted his thoughts. Detective? Officer Chun stuck her head in. You might want to see this. Damian Hayes just tried to leave the country. Airport police stopped him based on the fraud allegations. Maxwell grabbed his coat. Let's go. At the airport holding area, Dax sat handcuffed to a chair, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face haunted. I want my lawyer, he demanded as Maxwell entered. Sure, call your lawyer. Maxwell pulled up a chair. While we wait, maybe you can explain these. He spread out a series of financial documents. Interesting pattern of transfers here. Stealing from your mistress while stealing with her? That's a new one. Dax's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Let me break it down. You helped Vivian Thorne embezzle from her husband's accounts. But you couldn't help yourself, could you? Had to skim a little off the top. Maxwell leaned back. How'd she take it when she found out? She doesn't. Dax stopped himself, but it was too late. Doesn't know? Oh, she knows now. Maxwell smiled grimly. Someone made sure of that. Just like someone made sure I got these records. Someone very thorough, very patient, and very, very angry. Elias, Dax whispered, slumping in his chair. Smart man. Want to tell me your side of the story? Maxwell pushed a recorder across the table. Might help your case. My side. Dax gave a bitter laugh. My side is I got greedy. With everything, money, power, Vivian. I thought I could have it all. He stared at his handcuffed wrists. Should have known better. Nobody crosses Elias Thorne and gets away with it. Meanwhile, across town, Vivian stormed into her usual salon, desperate for some semblance of normalcy. The owner, Margaret, who had been her confidant for 15 years, blocked her path. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thorne. Your membership has been terminated. Terminated? I've been coming here for years. Yes, well, Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Your credit cards are all declined, and given the current situation... The current situation? Vivian's voice rose hysterically. You mean my husband's smear campaign? Please don't make this difficult. We have other clients to consider. Vivian looked around the salon, noting how her former friends averted their eyes, pretending to be absorbed in their magazines. These same women had been at her anniversary party just weeks ago, laughing at her jokes, accepting her hospitality. Her phone buzzed. Another email from her lawyer, explaining that yet another attempt to access her accounts had failed. The attached documentation showed how thoroughly Elias had traced and documented her financial misconduct. Desperate, she called Dax, only to reach his voicemail. She tried his office next. I'm sorry, Miss Thorne. His secretary's voice was cold. Mr. Hayes is no longer with the firm. The news sites filled in the blanks. Dax's attempted flight from justice was now public knowledge, along with allegations of fraud and embezzlement. The comments sections were brutal, society columnists gleefully dissecting every detail of their affair and subsequent downfall. In his office, Elias reviewed the latest reports from his various sources. Dax's arrest had been the catalyst he'd been waiting for, the final piece that would bring everything crashing down. Mr. Thorne? His assistant buzzed in. Detective Maxwell is here to see you. Send him in. Maxwell entered, carrying a thick file. Quite a show you're putting on, Mr. Thorne. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, detective. I'm just a wronged husband trying to protect my interests. Right. Maxwell dropped the file on Elias's desk. And these documents about Harrison's corruption just happened to find their way to every news outlet in the city? The same way evidence of your wife's embezzlement just happened to surface. If you're implying something, detective, I suggest you prove it. Maxwell smiled grimly. That's the problem, isn't it? Everything's legal. Pristine. Even. Every document properly obtained. Every allegation backed by evidence. It's almost too perfect. Perhaps I'm just thorough in my business dealings. Thorough enough to destroy 3 lives without breaking a single law. Maxwell leaned forward. That takes a special kind of patience. A special kind of rage. Are you here to arrest me, detective?
No.
Maxwell stood. Just wanted to see for myself what kind of man could orchestrate something like this. Must have hurt, finding out about their betrayal. Elias's expression remained impassive. Was there something specific you needed? Just one thing. Maxwell headed for the door. The evidence against Harrison, the real evidence, not just what you've leaked to the press, would be helpful for our investigation. Elias opened his desk drawer and withdrew a USB drive. Everything's documented. I'm sure you'll find it enlightening. After Maxwell left, Elias received another update from his PR team. The media was having a field day with Dax's arrest. Photos of him in handcuffs dominated every news site, accompanied by detailed exposés of his financial crimes. Vivian had attempted to hold a press conference to tell her side of the story, but it had backfired spectacularly. Every journalist seemed to have evidence of her own misdeeds, asking increasingly pointed questions about her role in the financial fraud. Clara called with the latest legal updates. Harrison's trying to save himself by offering evidence against Dax. Your wife's lawyer quit. Apparently, her credit cards bounced when she tried to pay his retainer. And the divorce proceedings? Moving forward as planned. With the evidence of fraud, she won't get a penny. The judge is particularly interested in her misuse of charitable donations. Elias ended the call and stood at his office window, observing the city below. Everything was proceeding exactly as he'd planned. His enemies were destroying themselves and each other, their own greed and desperation doing more damage than he ever could. Jada found him there later, as the sun set over the city. I saw the news about Uncle Dax, she said quietly, and Mom's press conference. Are you okay? Yeah. She joined him at the window. It's weird. I used to think they were so perfect. Mom with her charity work, Dax with his success. Now I see it was all fake. People rarely show their true faces until they have nothing left to lose. Is that why you're doing it this way? Making them destroy themselves? Elias turned to his daughter. The best revenge isn't just about punishment. It's about justice. They didn't just betray me. They betrayed everything we built, everything we stood for. Now they're facing the consequences of their own actions. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with another update. Dax had agreed to testify against Harrison in exchange for leniency. Harrison, in turn, was threatening to expose everyone involved in his corrupt dealings. Vivian was giving hysterical interviews, each one more damaging to her credibility than the last. Elias watched it all unfold with cold satisfaction. He had merely set the stage. His enemies were now the architects of their own destruction. The press conference room at City Hall buzzed with anticipation. News cameras focused on the podium where Councilman Richard Harrison stood, his expensive suit failing to hide the sweat staining his collar. Behind him, a screen displayed graphs and charts meant to explain away the mounting evidence of corruption. These allegations are completely unfounded, Harrison declared, his voice wavering slightly. My record of public service speaks for itself. A reporter from the Chronicle stood up. Councilman, can you explain the discrepancies in the Mountain View development permits? Documents show you approved construction before environmental impact studies were completed. The timing of those approvals was. There were special circumstances. Another reporter jumped in. What about your connection to Damian Hayes? Sources say you fast-tracked his projects in exchange for kickbacks. Harrison loosened his tie. Mr. Hayes was simply one of many developers who... Is it true the FBI has opened an investigation into your campaign finances? The question hit like a physical blow. Harrison gripped the podium, his knuckles white. No further questions. My lawyer will be issuing a statement. As Harrison fled the podium, reporters shouting questions at his back, Elias watched the live stream from his office. He'd timed the document leaks perfectly, each revelation building on the last until Harrison's carefully constructed political fortress crumbled. His phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Harrison's lawyer reached out. He wants to make a deal. No deals, Elias replied. Another message arrived, this one from an unknown number. He recognized Vivian's desperate tone. Please, I have nowhere to go. All my cards are declined. My friends won't answer my calls. What am I supposed to do? Elias deleted the message without responding. His assistant buzzed in. Mr. Thorne? Detective Maxwell called. They've arrested Mr. Hayes at the airport. Put the detective through when he calls back. He pulled up the surveillance feed from the airport on his computer. The footage showed Dax being led away in handcuffs, his designer luggage abandoned at the check-in counter. His one-way ticket to Buenos Aires would go unused. Maxwell's call came an hour later. Your friend Hayes is singing like a canary, the detective said without preamble, offering up everything he knows about Harrison's deals in exchange for leniency. And what does he know? Enough to bury Harrison 10 times over. The DA's office is drawing up charges as we speak. But Hayes implicated your wife too. Says she was the one who made the introductions, set up the meetings. Interesting. Elias's voice revealed nothing. She's looking at serious charges. Fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. The works. I trust you'll handle it appropriately, Detective. That's not all. Maxwell paused. Hayes claims you knew about some of these deals. Says you signed off on them. Did he provide proof? Nothing concrete. But if we start digging, dig all you want, Detective. Everything I've done is perfectly legal. Unlike my wife and former friend, I understand the importance of documentation. After ending the call, Elias reviewed the latest reports from his investigators. Vivian had been spotted at increasingly desperate attempts to maintain her lifestyle. Luxury hotels had turned her away. Credit cards declined at restaurants. Her social media accounts, once filled with charity galas and society events, had gone silent. The weekend society pages, which had once featured glowing coverage of Vivian's charity work, now ran exposés on her fraudulent activities. The same socialites who had courted her friendship now gave anonymous quotes about her suspicious behavior and questionable character. Dad. Elias looked up to find Jada in his doorway. She held up her phone, displaying a social media post. Mom's trying to contact me through my friends. She's saying terrible things about you. Are you okay? I blocked them all. Jada's voice was hard. I have something you should see, though. Remember last year's charity gala? The one where Mom was in charge of donations. She placed a USB drive on his desk. I found Mom's old laptop. There are spreadsheets. The numbers don't match the official records. Elias picked up the drive. Good girl. Clara will want to see this. Are you going to have Mom arrested? I don't have to do anything. Elias's smile was cold. She's doing an excellent job of destroying herself. The next morning brought news of Harrison's resignation. The councilman faced federal corruption charges, his political career in ruins. His attempts to blame everything on Dax had backfired spectacularly when evidence emerged of his own extensive involvement. Clara arrived with updates on the divorce proceedings. Vivian's new lawyer quit this morning. Apparently, she couldn't pay his retainer. The judge is ready to rule on the asset division, and she gets nothing. The evidence of fraud was overwhelming. The judge was particularly interested in those charity records Jada found. Elias nodded. Make sure the press gets the details, especially about the charities. Already done. Your wife's name is toxic in this town now. She tried to book a room at the Four Seasons yesterday. They told her they were fully booked for the next year. A news alert popped up on Elias's phone. Local developer faces additional charges. The article detailed new evidence against Dax, including attempts to destroy documents before his attempted flight. His cooperation with authorities had come too late to save him. One more thing, Clara said, pulling out a final document. The DA wants your statement about the Mountain View project, specifically about the forged signatures on the permits. Schedule it for tomorrow. I want to be thorough. Elias's expression showed no mercy. After all, my former friend deserves nothing less than my complete attention to detail. The Warehouse district was deserted at this hour, the empty buildings creating perfect acoustics for the click of Vivian's heels on concrete. She found Elias waiting exactly where he'd specified in his message, the first and only communication he'd initiated since the restaurant. Her designer dress was wrinkled. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Why here? She demanded, trying to maintain her dignity. Privacy. Elias stood with his back to her, studying the city skyline. No audiences. No performances. Just truth. Truth. Vivian's laugh was brittle. You want truth? You've destroyed my life. My friends, my reputation, everything gone. Are you happy now? Elias turned, his expression unchanged. Your life? You mean the life you built with my money? The reputation you earned using my name? The friends who only tolerated you because of your social position? I helped build your success. Those connections, those social circles. You needed them. No, Vivian. I earned my success. You just enjoyed spending the rewards. He removed an envelope from his jacket. Speaking of spending, he began laying out documents on a nearby crate. Bank statements, credit card bills, property records. 25 years of marriage. 25 years of lies. Did you think I wouldn't find the secret accounts? The money you funneled to Dax? That was different. I needed security. Security? Elias's voice could have frozen flame. Like the security I offered? The house, the cars, the lifestyle you couldn't maintain on your own? Please, Vivian whispered, her facade cracking. I have nothing left. Nowhere to go. That's not entirely true. Elias produced another envelope. Inside was a single key. Studio apartment. Paid for 1 year. Basic furnishings included. Vivian stared at the key in horror. You can't be serious. I can't live in some cheap apartment. You can. You will. Elias's voice was implacable. Consider it generous. It's more than you deserve. Generous? You've taken everything from me. My accounts are frozen. My cards canceled. Even my own family won't speak to me. Your accounts? Elias picked up a particular document. You mean the ones you used to embezzle from charities? Fascinating reading. Children's hospitals, cancer research. Did you think that money was yours to take? I was going to pay it back. With what? Dax's money? Elias laid out more papers. The money he was stealing from you? Oh yes, I know about that too. Your lover was skimming from every transfer, planning his own escape. He played you just like you played me. Vivian collapsed onto a crate, her carefully maintained poise finally shattering. I loved you once, she whispered. In the beginning. No. Elias's voice held no emotion. You loved what I could give you. Status. Money. Power. Now you have none of those things. What do you want from me? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it. I don't want anything from you, Vivian. Not anymore. He gestured to the key. Take it or don't. Your choice. But this is the last time we'll speak. Elias, please. The divorce is final tomorrow. Your new home is furnished, but only with necessities. No luxuries. No extravagances. Just the basics needed to survive. And if I refuse, then you can join Dax in facing fraud charges. The DA is very interested in those charity accounts. Vivian picked up the key with trembling fingers. You're a monster. No. Elias straightened his jacket. I'm just someone who finally saw you for what you really are. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Don't try to contact Jada again. She's seen the evidence. All of it. She knows exactly what kind of mother you really are. She's my daughter. She's my daughter. You lost the right to call her yours when you chose your own selfish desires over her happiness. Elias's voice could have cut diamond. The apartment lease starts tomorrow. I suggest you use your last night of freedom to consider your choices. He left her there, surrounded by the evidence of her crimes, clutching a key to her new life of obscurity. Her sobs echoed off the warehouse walls, but Elias didn't look back. Later that evening, he received word of Dax's sentencing. The judge had shown no mercy, citing the extensive nature of the fraud and the betrayal of trust. 20 years, no possibility of parole for at least 15. The once successful developer would spend his prime years in a federal prison. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Elias's office as he reviewed the blueprints for his latest project. The community center's design incorporated everything he'd learned about creating spaces that served people rather than profit. Meeting rooms for support groups, classrooms for adult education, childcare facilities for working parents, every detail carefully planned to make a real difference. His phone buzzed with a text from Jada. Just finished my college applications. Coming to show you. He smiled, his first genuine expression of joy in months. Watching his daughter emerge stronger from the crisis had been his one consolation. She'd thrown herself into her studies, channeling her pain into determination to succeed on her own terms. A knock at his door preceded Detective Maxwell's arrival. "Quite a space you're designing," the detective commented, glancing at the blueprints. "Bit different from your usual projects. Sometimes destruction needs to be balanced with creation." Elias sat back in his chair. "I assume this isn't a social call?" "Case is closed." Maxwell dropped a file on the desk. "Harrison's taking a plea deal. 25 years, full cooperation. He's naming names, dates, everything, and Dax started his sentence yesterday. Maximum security." His appeals were denied. Maxwell studied Elias carefully. Interesting thing about the evidence. All perfectly documented, perfectly legal. Almost too perfect. "I'm very thorough in my business dealings, detective, so I've noticed." Maxwell's expression was knowing. "Your wife's charity fraud case goes to trial next month. DA's office is confident about a conviction." "Ex-wife," Elias corrected. "The divorce was finalized this morning. Heard she's living in some studio apartment now. Quite a change from her usual lifestyle. Everyone faces consequences for their choices eventually." Maxwell nodded slowly. "You know, when I started investigating this case, I thought you were behind everything. The leaked documents, the media stories, the financial pressure. Figured you were orchestrating some elaborate revenge. And now? Now I think sometimes justice finds its own path, even if that path isn't strictly by the book." The detective stood. "For what it's worth, I probably would have done the same in your position." After Maxwell left, Jada burst in, waving her college applications triumphantly. "MIT, Stanford, and Columbia, all submitted. That's my girl." Elias hugged her tightly. "Your mother called again?" "Tried to. Through my counselor this time." Jada's face hardened. "I told him what she did with the charity money. He blocked her number." "You don't have to keep fighting her battles. They're my battles too, Dad." Jada studied the community center blueprints. "This is amazing. Something good coming from all the bad." "Life's about choices," Elias said quietly. "Your mother and Dax chose greed and betrayal. Harrison chose corruption. I choose to build something meaningful. And what about forgiveness?" Elias looked at his daughter, seeing the wisdom beyond her years. "Some things can't be forgiven, but they can be transformed. Like this center built with the money recovered from Harrison's corrupt deals, dedicated to helping people avoid the paths he chose." "And Mom? Will you ever forgive her?" "No." His voice was firm. "But I won't waste energy hating her either. She's lost everything that mattered to her. Money, status, respect. That's punishment enough." They stood together, studying the blueprints for the future they would build. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, unaware that one man's quest for revenge had reshaped its power structures forever. Elias Thorne had lost his marriage, his best friend, and his illusions about trust. But he'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge that he could survive betrayal and emerge stronger, more focused, more determined to create something meaningful from the ashes of destruction. The community center would be his legacy, a reminder that even the darkest acts could lead to light, not through forgiveness or weakness, but through the implacable strength of a man who refused to be broken by betrayal. "Come on," he said to Jada. "Let's get dinner. We have plans to make." She smiled, understanding perfectly. They had survived the storm together, their bond stronger for having been tested. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with rebuilding. Elias took one last look at his office as they left. On his desk, the final divorce decree lay signed and filed, marking the end of 25 years of marriage and the beginning of a new chapter. He didn't need to read it again. Some endings were better left in the past, while the future demanded all his attention. The man who had orchestrated such complete destruction could now focus on creation. Not because he had forgiven or forgotten, but because he had proven beyond doubt that no one could cross him without facing absolute consequences. That knowledge was worth more than any revenge. Epilogue. 10 years later. The Thorne Community Center stood as a beacon in the city's downtown, its modern architecture drawing praise from critics and gratitude from residents. Inside, Elias Thorne, now 58, walked through the bustling halls with his daughter Jada, who had flown in from New York for the center's 10th anniversary celebration. "Look at this place, Dad," Jada said, watching children rush past them toward the after-school programs. "Hard to believe it started as part of your revenge plan." Elias smiled at his daughter, now a successful architect in her own right at 27. She'd graduated top of her class from MIT and had already made a name for herself with innovative, sustainable design projects. Sometimes the best foundations are built on cleared ground. They passed the dedication plaque, which made no mention of Harrison's corruption or the source of the initial funding. The former councilman had died 3 years into his prison sentence, his legacy reduced to cautionary tales in political science classes. "Have you heard about Mom?" Jada asked as they entered Elias's office. Despite a decade of separation, she still struggled with the word. "Clara keeps me informed." Elias's voice held no emotion. "Still working at that diner in Portland. Last I heard, the mighty Vivian Thorne had fallen far. After 5 years in prison for charity fraud, she'd emerged to find every door permanently closed. No society friends, no family support, no connections willing to acknowledge her existence. She drifted from city to city, taking menial jobs, her designer wardrobe replaced by waiting uniforms and sensible shoes. She tried to friend me on social media again," Jada said, using a fake name this time, "as if I wouldn't recognize her, and blocked her. Just like always." Jada pulled out her phone, showing her father a recent photo. "But you might find this interesting." The image showed Vivian serving coffee in a cheap diner, her once perfect features weathered by time and hardship. She looked every day of her 57 years and then some. The woman who had once dominated society pages now went unrecognized even by those who had once coveted her approval. "She tried writing a tell-all book," Jada continued. "No publishers would touch it. Turns out your reputation was worth more than her scandal." Elias turned to the wall of awards his firm had accumulated over the past decade. After the divorce, he'd redirected his business towards socially conscious projects, community centers, affordable housing, sustainable developments. Each success had further cemented his position while ensuring Vivian's allegations found no sympathetic ears. "And Dax?" Jada asked, though she already knew. They both kept tabs on their former family friend. "Still in federal prison. 12 more years to go." Elias pulled up a report on his computer. He tried starting a prison ministry. Claims he's found redemption. Damian Hayes' fall had been even more spectacular than Vivian's. His testimony against Harrison had earned him no leniency, not after the extent of his financial crimes came to light. The once charismatic developer now spent his days in a maximum security cell, his charm wasted on guards and fellow inmates. Clara's firm handled his last appeal, Elias continued. It was denied, of course. She made sure of that. Clara Sterling had parlayed her handling of the Thorne divorce into a spectacular career. Her reputation for ruthless efficiency had made her the city's most sought-after lawyer. She still handled all of Elias's legal work, their professional relationship strengthened by shared history and mutual respect. "Detective Maxwell retired last year," Jada mentioned. "He sent me a card for my engagement. Said he's writing a book about his biggest cases. Don't worry. He promised to keep certain details vague." Ray Maxwell had indeed retired with full honors, his handling of the Harrison corruption case cited as a career highlight. He occasionally consulted with the department, but spent most of his time fishing and working on his memoirs. He and Elias maintained a cordial relationship built on unspoken understanding of justice served. Speaking of the engagement, Elias turned to his daughter. "How's Thomas handling the background check?" Jada laughed. "He expected it, actually. Said any man who managed what you did would naturally investigate his daughter's fiancé." Thomas Chun was an environmental engineer Jada had met during a sustainable building project. He'd impressed Elias not just with his credentials and character, but with his understanding of consequences. "Your father destroyed 3 lives to protect his family," he told Jada. "That tells me exactly how much he values loyalty." A knock at the door preceded Clara's arrival. Age had only sharpened her efficiency, her reputation now legendary in legal circles. "The documents you requested," she said, placing a folder on Elias's desk. Vivian's latest attempt to access her trust fund was denied. The fraud conviction makes her permanently ineligible. And the other matter? Dax's new prison counselor reached out. He's requesting another chance to apologize in person. Says he's truly changed. Same answer as always, Elias replied. Clara nodded. No further discussion needed. They had maintained this pattern for a decade. Vivian and Dax making periodic attempts at contact or reconciliation, Elias's silence serving as his only response. His revenge had never been about violence or direct confrontation. It was about erasure, about reducing his betrayers to footnotes in his success story. The center's running a new program, Jada said, changing the subject, counseling for families affected by betrayal and fraud. They asked if you'd speak at the opening. Ironic, Clara commented. Appropriate, Elias corrected. Everything comes full circle. That evening, they attended a charity gala at the same hotel where Elias had first discovered Vivian and Dax's betrayal. The city's elite still competed for his attention, his influence now greater than ever. No one mentioned his ex-wife or former friend. Their names had been effectively erased from polite society's memory. Sometimes I wonder, Jada said as they watched the crowds, if you ever regret how far you took it. The complete destruction of their lives. Elias considered the question. Regret implies uncertainty. Everything I did was calculated, deliberate, and necessary. They chose their path. I simply ensured they walked it to its logical conclusion. Later, alone in his office, Elias reviewed the latest reports. Vivian had tried returning to their old social circles under an assumed name, only to be recognized and publicly humiliated. Dax's prison ministry proposal had been rejected, his request for transfer to a lower security facility denied. The community center's success had spawned similar projects in other cities. Elias's firm now had a waiting list of clients wanting to replicate the model. Each new project further legitimized his legacy while burying the scandal that had inspired it. A text from Jada lit up his phone. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Love you, Dad. Elias smiled. His daughter had learned the most important lesson, that true power lay not in forgiveness, but in the ability to rise above betrayal while ensuring betrayers faced the full consequences of their choices. The city skyline spread before him, dotted with buildings bearing his firm's influence. In the end, his revenge hadn't just destroyed 3 people who betrayed him. It had transformed him into something stronger, more focused, more respected than ever. Vivian would spend the rest of her life serving coffee to strangers who never knew she once commanded society's respect. Dax would grow old behind bars, his charm wasted on prison guards. Their betrayal had cost them everything, while Elias had turned their destruction into his greatest triumph. The symmetry was perfect, the consequences absolute, just as he'd planned from the moment he first discovered their betrayal 10 years and a lifetime ago. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.